Hey y'all, I'm Julie, and today I'm going to share with you some personal perspectives that I have experienced in my journey toward looking for agency representation for my novel. Every time I tell people, that I wrote a book and that I'm having it considered by publishers and whatnot, they always want to know, oh, how did you start that? How did you know what to do? So I figured I would take you from the beginning to the end here and tell you how it worked for me. I have no idea how typical this is, but, get yourself some coffee and sit back and listen to my story. So first of all, the literary agency that I'm signed to is Inklings Literary, and my agent is the lovely Michelle Johnson. She is representing my novel series, Bad Fairy, which is a retold fairy tale. It tells the life story of the Bad Fairy from Sleeping Beauty. And this was actually based on a short story that I started writing way back in the year 2000. One of my favorite authors, Francesca Lia Block, was releasing a short story book of retold fairy tales, so one of my friends and I celebrated this release by writing our own. And, I published that short story on my website, and it turned out one of my readers left a comment for me saying, this can make a really good novel. And I thought, oh, well, thank you, Dan. And I decided to find out if he was right. I'm an extraordinarily fast writer. I just kind of dive in and disappear for a while. So what happened is I went under, and 5 weeks later, when I came back out of that, I had a 255,000 word fantasy novel. And if that number sounds alarming, that's because it is. Despite the length, I did decide to try to pursue agency representation for it. And after actually quite a few years of attempting to whittle it down and work out all the kinks and edit the book, I ended up starting my search for agency representation back in 2006. Believe it or not, I did manage to get about half of the agents that I pitched it to were interested. I think it was 7 or 8, and 4 of them wanted to see it. So I started sending my materials, and I got a full manuscript request right away. But as soon as they saw that word count, I'm sure you can imagine that it was over for me. That agent told me that my writing was good, but that nobody was going to take a book this size, and that I might have to look at self-publishing if I wanted to get it out there. There's also the fact that authors are frequently required to kind of prove themselves if they want to publish something that large. So once you're famous, you can do anything. So I figured, okay, maybe I need to publish something else first, and then I would be able to get a book like this published. So I actually wrote a shorter book, a completely unrelated young adult book. And then when I started trying to pitch that to agents, I kept getting very low interest compared to my other one. I knew how to do it because I'd already gotten a pretty good response from my previous book, but it just seemed like this idea wasn't as hot, and also it featured a young adult kind of plot, but it happened in college, and I've been told that that is sometimes problematic in selling. So, I went back to the drawing board, and I decided, well, what about this book that got so much interest from the agents, but the length was killing it? So I figured, why don't I go ahead and reconceive this as a trilogy? That did require complete rewriting, of course. I couldn't just break it into 3 parts. It was one complete story originally. So I reimagined what the first part of my protagonist's life could look like, and I decided to make a complete story out of her education. So after I finished that book and put it through my test audience, I started with a rough draft of 171,000 words, if you can believe that. And I ended up getting it down to a submission draft of 146,000 words. Most notably, with the help of a few test readers, especially my friend Jessie. Thank you, Jessie. And I thought 146,000 words was pretty good, so you can see what my perspective was like. 146,000 words sounded tiny to me. Anyway, so I started submitting. I got a few nibbles. I got full manuscript requests. And then 2 of the agents that rejected my full manuscript told me that I had a saggy middle, or that my pacing was slow. And I thought, wow, after all that cutting, I still have extra baggage in this book. So then I happened to query Marissa Corvisiero, and she was not the person who responded to my query. The person who responded to my query was Michelle Johnson, who then worked for Corvisiero. And she told me that she liked my idea and the 5 pages that I had submitted, but that she wanted me to cut the book down to 115,000 words, or somewhere between 85,000 and 115,000. And I thought, I think this must be the kick in the butt I need after 2 agents told me that my book's pacing was a problem. Maybe that's what I need to clean it up. So I went ahead and I started some brutal cutting, and I lost some stuff I didn't really want to lose, but I think overall it made it a better book. And I ended up getting it to exactly 115,000 words, and I submitted it to Michelle. I later found out she thought that was hilarious, that I had exactly 115,000 words in my submission draft. So, she received my manuscript. She told me that she would be looking at it. And what was really striking about my process with Michelle was that she gave me updates along the way. She emailed me at some point during the process to tell me that she's excited to get back into reading my book, but that she had been interrupted by a rush read for another project, and that she thought that I needed to know what her process was like, that she was so interested in keeping me updated. That was really refreshing and a very nice touch. So, I waited patiently, and eventually one day when I was stalking her on Twitter, I saw that she tweeted that she had a book that she was reading that she thought was so great she couldn't even stop to go get coffee. Coffee is kind of important to us. And I wonder if that's about me. So, anyway, not too much farther along the road, I did get an email from her asking when she could call me. And if you know the language of literary agents, asking if they can call you usually means that they're about to offer you representation. So I thought, it's probably what she's doing. And she called me the next day. We had a really nice chat. We found out that we had a lot in common. And, we both like coffee. And we both come from editing backgrounds, and we have a lot of similar perspectives on life. And it was just a really nice chat, personally as well as professionally. She answered all my questions and reassured me on a couple of things that I was unclear on. And I told her I would think about the offer. I still had other people considering the book at that time. And eventually I did, after a week or so, I decided to commit to signing with Michelle. At that point, she was still part of the Corvisiero agency, so I was actually signed to her and her boss, Marissa. But when she decided to leave that agency and start her own, I came with her. I migrated to the new agency, which is Inklings, and so far I am pretty impressed with how everything is going. My book is on submission. I've gotten nibbles from several major publishers, and I am hoping that pretty soon I will have great news as far as a book deal, something like that. We are trying for a 3-book deal, if possible, to try to get all 3 of the trilogy books spoken for. So I feel like I'm in very capable hands, and I'm enjoying the process. I really like having an agent who is accessible, who is friendly, who I can talk to, but who also knows her stuff. So, and that is my story. I hope you enjoyed that.